This video will incorporate spoilers from the off, so take into account, you've been warned. Ted Lasso currently concluded its story, and with that it's supposed that we had to bid farewell to a set of characters that a lot of us got here to come to be extremely invested in over the path of the beyond few years. Each of the characters delivered something extraordinarily precise to the show, and the Forge changed into so flawlessly balanced that it allowed every and each certainly one of them to experience like individuals that we knew personally. The display fashioned this global. That felt all too actual, and it were given me considering what would have emerged as of the characters after the show finished, as they might nonetheless be out there dwelling their lives. So I notion Idea writes about what passed off and defined their lives after. So permits get into it. Just to let you know, this video will incorporate spoilers. I'll smash this video down by each most important character that had an overarching plot at some point of the tale. Let's begin with Ted. So as we understand, Ted went again to the States to be with his son Henry, after combating with the concept on whether or not to for everything of the season. We saw him take the plunge and go away AFC Richmond after taking them to 2D within the table after enforcing a new tactic displaying that he did have expertise for coping with via the stop of it. As properly as that we saw that he became able to recover from his father's demise and ultimately grieved for him because of it being suppressed while he turned into more youthful. But what happened to Ted inside the years to come? Well, after returned home and being with Henry and with it searching like he became training his soccer team, I assume Ted persevered to do this for a while. The no stress, however, entertainment of being close to his circle of relatives is something that I feel could certainly fit the mindset of Ted. I additionally suppose that he'd cross on to discover love with someone whilst he was within the States. I do not accept as true with that he could have gotten back with Michelle. We noticed on a limitless variety of occasions in the course of the final season that it seemed as although Ted had moved on, which include whilst Michelle visited the UK and also while Ted spoke with Rebecca and said how Michelle become his beyond. She was his past and a romantic experience, however I suppose they would be the fine of friends moving ahead for the rest of their lives due to them needing to care for Henry. Maybe Ted might meet somebody once education his son's football group. I pretty just like the idea of Ted finding love with anyone who changed into harm by their preceding partner, a discern of one of the gamers maybe. We know that Ted has numerous love to provide, and I sense like he'd most sincerely meet somebody. I assume he would also maintain in close touch with the AFC Richmond boys, however extra mainly Coach Beard, Roy and Rebecca. It would not marvel me in the event that they even heard a set chat set up inside the display. It become made out that Ted going to the US meant that it changed into basically the give up of their friendships and that they wouldn't be able to speak to each other once more. But I don't think that is the case. I think Ted might keep up with the Premier League and maximum probably cross to watch certainly one of their games inside the Champions League with Ted setting AFC Richmond on the map within the States. The group can also even do a preseason American tour like a whole lot of massive clubs do, so that could allow Ted for you to see everybody for a couple of weeks and maybe even go with them. After training Henry's football group, I suppose he might search for a task again, and with him no longer wanting to be too some distance away from home, I sense he'd search for an activity which might allow him to train in the MLS. So in that sense, I assume Ted's finishing could be extraordinarily happy and be the only that he constantly desired. Rebecca's journey is one that could be getting into a route where matters could pretty tons be the identical in terms of her career. But in terms of romantically, matters might simply be getting started out along with her meeting the mystery guy in Amsterdam and bumping into him at the airport. I sense as even though this will be the proper man or woman for her, and she or he could move directly to stay with him. They had an intimate connection that transcended physicality, and that's something that have to honestly be certainly one of a kind. With the psychic symptoms also all pointing towards him, it would be future. I think she could cross directly to be a terrific mom to the child because of her continually looking to be one. I also suppose she'd be respectful of the kid's organic mother. I suppose that each of them would sooner or later move on to get married, and perhaps Ted could actually visit that wedding because of it being a while after he left the United Kingdom. In phrases of the club, I think with her seeking to sell it, being on her thoughts, I feel she may also stay there for every other season or and then appearance to promote it again. When golf equipment take a look at the water with income, they generally cross directly to be offered in a couple of years with a Champions League facet in her portfolio. There's quite a few cash to be made there, money that could enable her to just stay her life without any stress and experience being around her circle of relatives. So I suppose that would be impending within the foreseeable destiny, which could suggest that the club might become getting converted. With the way that the Premier League goes for the time being, it could see super wealth if she changed into going to sell the club, though. I experience within the years before she did, she would cross onto installation the AFC Richmond women's group with the entirety that she learned via operating with Ted. I think she'd study from the errors and also make use of the positives, a good way to allow the club to be greater of a success in a miles shorter amount of time. Roy, when we left Roy, he changed into taking a glance inside of himself and seeing how he might be able to improve. He knew that he'd by no means be with Keely so long as he had the troubles buried inside him, as that changed into something that could usually get in the front of their relationship. So I trust he would overcome his problems and be a higher character for that. However, I don't assume that he would emerge as with Keely by then. I feel too much time might have handed and he or she would have moved on absolutely. Plus, I additionally sense as even though Roy could have as properly, the remedy that he might be having could open up his eyes and make him comprehend that he is equipped to move ahead in life. And then a new bankruptcy would be upon him. So he'd be a slightly calmer person as a manager, much less of a cont and greater of a Roy Hodgson as the manager of FC Richmond. I suppose he'd be able to do a terrific activity with the lack of Ted. I suppose there might be a slight exchange in the team. Ted changed into all approximately instilling private values throughout the manner that the crew would play and the mindset which they had. That's something which turned into nearly like the lifeblood of the membership. I sense Roy could have attempted to have endured that, but it simply would not have worked out because of it no longer being natural. So he could have had to have adopted a barely distinctive approach and in the end ended up being successful in the end after now not having the exceptional of starts to his managerial career. I suppose because the years went on, he'd be capable of carry them success. Nate became the person who had the arc of redemption and ended up now not wherein he desired to be on the begin of the season, but wherein he needed to be. I think Nate's family life and love lifestyles could continue to be at the level that it became at. Contentment could be present and there could not be disruption amongst himself and his own family. Where most of his improvement could come from could be in his professional profession. We noticed that he became appointed as one of the assistant coaches at FC Richmond. I think his understanding would be essential to the membership, especially when it got here to Roy in his first season. But I suppose after multiple seasons of doing that, he might move on to be a supervisor of a pinnacle group within the Premier League. The foremost motive as to why he left West Ham was due to the fact he disagreed with Rupert's and his perspectives, and also the truth that he desired to reconcile with Ted. So if Rupert had been to sell the membership because of looking to be out of the public eye following his allegations, then Nate might also come to be going lower back to West Ham and managing in a much higher surroundings. Kiwi's continuation might be one which changed into greater centered on self-improvement in the quick time period with her seeking to grow her business. I sense she would be targeted on that and extra about self-empowerment in place of looking to locate validation from an accomplice, something which she had formerly accomplished. I think as soon as she changed into a greater settled area along with her enterprise, she could pass on from Roy and maybe even become with Jamie. They both cared deeply for one another and a sense of care was gift between them. I additionally feel as even though they had been better ideal than Keely with Roy. By the end of it, I suppose she'd nevertheless remain precise friends with Roy and he or she would be closely involved inside the membership nonetheless. Jamie is an individual that I think could stay at FC Richmond and cross directly to come to be a club legend with him adopting extra of a crew mentality in the final season. I assume within the years yet to come after dropping deeper and needing to exchange his game slightly due to his age, he could grow to be captain of the crew. He could be one of the final last players from Ted's reign, and he'd be a tremendous character to have as a captain of the club, being able to instill all of the treasured classes that he became as soon as taught as a teenager within the club. Coach Beard. I think Coach Beard, even in his new marriage, might stay at the club. But after a while, I imagine he'd get a call from Ted with activity provided to train alongside him. Again, perhaps while Ted becomes seeking to educate within the MLS after being accomplished with Henry's team, and I feel Coach Beard would take up the provide. This will be the friendship rekindling itself after a short break, something which all proper friendships can have. I suppose Jane might additionally go with him. She's a loopy person, however one which cares about Coach Beard and could maximum in all likelihood be excited by the chance of being out of the country for a while. There are so many specific theories that might be feasible about what may want to manifest to the characters put up the show, but this is what I think would manifest, and I assume it fits the characters quite well. So there you've got it, how the Ted Lasso characters' lives persisted after the show. If you want to see greater films along with endings, defined theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or instead, you can head over to my channel in which you'll locate them all. If you need to offer me a show or film that you'd like me to study, then head over to my Twitter at brainpilot_ and tweet me what display or film you want me to review next. And sooner or later, in case you'd like to see what I examine, the modern day movies that do not pretty make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I feed the latest releases in real time. What do you observe the characters went on to? Leave a comment down underneath and recall to subscribe. I'll see you subsequent time.